राधा विनोद बिहारी जू की जय। श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मरन मोहन जू की जय। नित्य विश्व विष्णुपार श्रीमार भक्ति वेदांत नारायण गोसाई महाराज श्रील गुरुदेव की जय। नित्य विष्णु विष्णुपार शतर शत श्रीमार भक्ति वेदांत वामन गोसाई महाराज की जय। नित्य विष्णु विष्णुपार शतर शत श्रीमार भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्य प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद शतर शत शिष्मार भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोसाई महाराज की जय। नित्य प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद शतर शत शिष्मार भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोसाई प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्य प्रविष्ट महाभागवत श्री गोरक्षरस बाबूजी महाराज की जय। नित्य विश्व श्री सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। नित्य विष्ट वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथ दास बाबूजी महाराज की जय। श्री रूपानुगौरी गुरु वर्ग की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्टदास रघुनाथ शार गोसाई प्रभु की जय। श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामानंदारी श्री गौर प्रसाद वृंद की जय। नाम अचय श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल व्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्ट व्रत गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जय। श्री यमुना देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाया की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भगवताम की जय। श्री उद्धव-गीत की जय। श्री विश्वनाथ चक्रवर्ती ठाकुर की जय। सārārtha-darśinī वृत्ति की जय। श्रील भक्तिसिद्धांता सरस्वती गोसाई प्रभुपाद की जय। गौड़ीय भाष्य की जय। श्री व्यांजलि महाद्वादशी तिथि की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ओम ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय राधिकाय प्रियात्मने श्रीश्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्त नारायणेति नामिने। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। गुरवे गौरचन्द्राय राधिकायै तदालये कृष्णाय कृष्णभक्ताय तरभक्ताय नमो नमः। यं प्रव्रजन्तमनुपेतमपेतकृत्यां द्वैपायनो विरहकातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवो विनेदुस्तं सर्वभूत हृदयां मुनिमानतोऽस्मि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। श्रीमतां स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनं हृदन्तस्तो ह्यभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सतं। नष्टप्रयेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भगवतसेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टकी। तवैवास्मि न जीवामि त्वया विना iti vigyaya radhe tvam nayamang charanantikam bhaktya vihina aparada lakshai kshiptastakama ditaranga madhe kripa mai tvam sharanam prapanna vrinde namaste charanaravindam Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Hari Bol, everybody. Dandavat Pranams, Ganga Mataji, Raseshwari Mataji, Gargaraj ji, Madhavi Didi, Manjari Didi, Hari Bol. And also Indira Mataji, she just arrived in Spain and she'll be watching this later, so pranams to her. And Pradyumna Prabhu, Mantramurti Mataji, Hare Krishna, everybody. All right, so, one second, I tried washing clothes right before I started, and that's what made me late, so I'm not really totally prepared. But let me just find, one second. 24 Gurus, 11th Canto. No, I found a good one. Anyways, doesn't matter. Anyhow. What's this? Okay, so we went through, in the 24 Gurus, we heard about, we went through the earth, air, sky, water, fire, moon, sun, pigeon, python, honeybee, honey thief, bird of prey, the sea, the moth, the elephant, deer, fish, and now we come to Piṅgalā. It's number 18, the 24 Gurus. Let's read the summary now. Chapter summary. In this chapter, the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna describes to Uddhava what the Avadut Brahman had learned from the 9 spiritual masters, beginning with the python. The Avadut Brahman narrated to Maharaj Yadu his experience as follows. So this is the Brahman, what's his name? Devadatta, right? From Avanti. So now he explains. The lesson to be learned from the python. It is the duty of intelligent persons to remain engaged in the worship of the Supreme Lord while maintaining their livelihood with whatever is easily available by the arrangement of providence. Even if no food is available, one who desires to worship the Lord should think that whatever is destined to him will certainly come, and that he should not waste his precious time uselessly endeavoring for bodily necessities. In this way, he should maintain himself like a python. He should maintain himself like a python who does not endeavor for food. This practice will enable him to meditate on the Supreme Lord with undivided attention. Pradyumna Prabhu just shared in our WhatsApp group, Karnamrita's, she sings the song of Piṅgalā. Anyway. 2. The lesson to be learned from the ocean. Self-realized souls who are inclined towards the Supreme Lord appear very pure and grave, just like the water of a calm ocean. As the ocean does not increase during the rainy season, even as many rivers flow into it, nor does it dry up in the summer when no water from the rivers enter it, A self-realized soul is neither elated when he receives objects of enjoyment, nor distressed when such objects are lacking. 3. The lesson to be learned from the moth. Just as a moth is enticed by a fire, flies into the fire, and dies, foolish people whose senses are not controlled are attracted by the form of a woman, her golden ornaments, and her dress, and thus fall down to the darkest regions of hell. Chasing after these embodiments of the divine illusory energy of the Lord, one ultimately loses his life and falls down into the most horrible hell. 4. The lesson to be learned from the bee. There are two kinds of bees, the bumblebee and the honeybee. The lesson to be learned from the bumblebee is that a self-realized soul should maintain himself by begging a little bit from door to door. He should collect essential truths from all the scriptures, whether they be great or insignificant. The lesson to be learned from the honeybee, and so that was the bumblebee. Now, the lesson to be learned from the honeybee is that a renounced person should not accumulate food thinking that he'll eat it later, in the evening or the next day. If he does so, he'll be destroyed along with his accumulated food, just as a greedy honeybee is destroyed along with its honey. Oh man, I really fall short on that one. 5. The lesson to be learned from an elephant. The male elephant follows the female elephant with a desire to enjoy her, and thus falls into a ditch made by a hunter and is trapped. In the same way, one who is attached to the form of a woman is destroyed by falling deep into the well of material existence. 6. The lesson to be learned from the honey thief. Just as a man takes all the honey that was collected with hard labor by the honeybees, one in the renounced order of life has the privilege of enjoying before anyone else the food and other valuable things purchased by the hard-earned money of householders. 7. The lesson to be learned from the deer. I don't like this one. This is my biggest, anyways. Just as a deer loses his life after being attracted by the music of a hunter, the life of a person who is attached to worldly songs is wasted. 8. The lesson to be learned from the fish. Just as a fish meets with death when it tries to enjoy the baited fishhook, unintelligent people spoil their valuable human lives by being slaves to the demands of the insatiable tongue. And today we will read about number 9, the last one of this chapter. There was once a prostitute. Should I read this? Yeah, I'll read it. There was once a prostitute named Piṅgalā who lived in the city of Videha, and from her the Avadut learned a lesson. One day, Piṅgalā dressed herself nicely and waited impatiently from evening to midnight for the arrival of her paramour. When he didn't come, Piṅgalā became so disappointed that she developed detachment. Being inspired by her conscience, she abandoned her sinful desire born of the thirst for meeting her paramour. She then meditated on Sri Hari and attained great peace in her mind. The instruction received from her is that desire for material enjoyment is the cause of our distress. Therefore, only one who has given up such desires can fix himself in meditation upon the Supreme Lord and thus achieve transcendental peace. So now we will read about the story of Piṅgalā in detail. Okay, here we are. So the one that we left with yesterday was, even if a person controls all his other senses, if he fails to control his tongue, he cannot be called a genuinely self-controlled man. On the other hand, if a person controls his tongue, it is to be understood that he has conquered all his senses. Okay, and then we came here to Piṅgalā. Just checking the comments again. Padumna Prabhu, I don't know the answer to that question. Was the Avadut connected to either Lord Rishabdev or Lord Dattatreya? I don't know. Piṅgalā nama Vishyasid Videha nagare pura tasya me shikshitam kinchin niboddha nripanandana. But I'm just curious, actually, what time period is Yadu? Anyways, should I look? No, I'm going to just continue reading and then we can look after. O son of kings, long ago there lived a prostitute named Piṅgalā who resided in the city of Videha. Now please hear what I have learned from her. Sārārtha-darśinī commentary by Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura. Now the Brahman will describe what he learned from Piṅgalā, the prostitute, by narrating her story. Sāsvairin-ekada kantam sanketa upanishati abhutkale bahirdvare bibhrati rupamuttamam. One night, the prostitute dressed herself attractively and sat outside her house, waiting for the arrival of a lover. Sārārtha-darśinī. By dressing in attractive ways and making various sensual bodily gestures, the prostitute Piṅgalā would attract her lovers. Marga agachato vikshya purushan purusharshava tan shulka dan vitavata kantan me nirthakamukhi. O foremost of men, this prostitute wanted desperately to get some money, and for that purpose she stood by the side of the road at night, gazing at all the men as they passed by. She thought, "This man looks wealthy, and I am sure that he would like to enjoy with me." In this way she evaluated men as they passed her by. Sārārtha-darśinī. People who were attracted to enjoying an intimate relationship with a woman would come to her and pay a handsome amount, and they would pay her a handsome amount. Oh, and by the way, guys, I'm using my mobile data because the Wi-Fi isn't working. So if it gets choppy, just let me know. I'll see if the Wi-Fi started working again. Agateshvapayateshu sa sanketo pajivini jivini apyanyo vitavan kopi mam upaishyati bhurida evam durashaya dhvasta nidra dvaravlambati nirgachanti pravishati nishitam samapadyata. As Piṅgalā stood in her doorway, many men passed her by. Her only means of support was her profession as a prostitute, and so she anxiously thought, "Maybe this man will enjoy my company. He looks like he has a lot of money. Here's another man who will surely pay me for my love." Alas, this man did not stop, but someone else is coming now who will surely want to pay me for my love. Thus, hoping against hope, Piṅgalā remained standing in her doorway, unable to earn enough money, and thus retire for the night. Being very anxious, she sometimes went out into the street, and then again went back into her house. In this way, the night passed. Sārārtha-darśinī. The word nishitam indicates that she waited till midnight, but no one availed of her services. Tasya vitashaya shushyad Vaktraya dinachetasa nirveda paramo jagye chinta hetu sukhavadvaha. When it became very late, the prostitute, who badly wanted to get some money, became morose so that her face appeared withered. Being full of anxiety and greatly disappointed, she began to experience a sense of detachment from her situation, so that a kind of happiness arose within her mind. Sārārtha-darśinī. Her entire night passed by thinking about wealth. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya commentary by Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosvāmī Prabhupāda. The prostitute Piṅgalā, who was greedy for money, dedicated her life to satisfying lusty men. As a result of engaging in the service of conditioned souls with her body, mind, and speech, and forgetting the service of the Supreme Lord, her mind became extremely restless. Finally, she became so frustrated that she became indifferent to her situation, so that happiness began to arise within her mind. Hare Krishna, Mitra Binda Didi, Dandavat Pranam. Tasya nirvinna chittaya gitam shrinu yata mama nirveda ashapashanam purushasya yata hyasi. Detachment is the only means by which a person can destroy the network of material desires. The prostitute felt disgusted with her situation, and this gave rise to indifference. The song sung by the prostitute in that situation. Sārārtha-darśinī. Piṅgalā thought, "My ambitions are the cause of my material bondage. Detachment or indifference is the only weapon by which this network of bondage can be cut to pieces." Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Those who cannot gain freedom from the bondage of their social position and family responsibilities, if they take up the trident of detachment, they can cut the knots of material bondage and attain auspiciousness. Those who are too attached to material enjoyments and are addicted to bodily pleasures cannot understand the messages of the self-realized Supreme Lord, being bound by the ropes of illusion. Being bound by the ropes of illusion. Did I say ropes of illusion? Sorry. Okay, what's the meter for this? Okay, it's the same. Nahyanga jata nirvedo deha bandham jihasati yata vijnana rahito manujo mamatam nripa. O king, just as an ignorant person with no spiritual knowledge is never inclined to renounce his false sense of ownership. Sorry, let me reread that. Just as an ignorant person with no spiritual knowledge is never inclined to renounce his false sense of ownership. Similarly, a person who has not developed a sense of detachment will never give up his attachment for his material body. Sārārtha-darśinī. The Avadut begins to explain the purpose of this narration. Piṅgalā uvacha Aho me mohavitatim pashyata vijitatmana yakantar asata kamam kamaye yena balisha. Piṅgalā said, "Alas, just see how greatly illusioned I am due to my uncontrolled senses. As a result, I have lost my power of discrimination and therefore desire satisfaction from similarly illusioned lusty men." Sārārtha-darśinī. The word kama means lusty desires. Piṅgalā is in effect saying, I desire to become satisfied in sex, and thus I can understand that I am completely illusioned. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The senses of the conditioned souls are naturally attracted to the sense objects of this material world. This is the prime example of the conditioned soul's foolishness. Some people who are actually averse to the Lord's service try to artificially check their senses from engagement in sense gratification for some time. But this actually does more harm than good because of their misunderstanding regarding the absolute truth. Foolish people consider other sense enjoyers to be their masters, and thus they pray to them for the fulfillment of their own sense gratification. However, as soon as one becomes enlightened in spiritual understanding, his life of material enjoyment can be transformed into a life of spiritual perfection. Santam samipe ramanam rati pradam veta pradam nityam imam vihaya akamadam dukkha bhayadishoka moha pradam tucham aham bhajegya. I am so foolish that I have given up the service of the most beloved person, the Supreme Lord, who is always situated within my heart, and who can award me real pleasure and prosperity. I abandoned his service and engaged in the service of insignificant men who were unable to fulfill my real desires, but instead brought me distress, fearfulness, anxiety, lamentation, and illusion. Sārārtha-darśinī. Piṅgalā thought, the Supersoul is sitting in my heart. Why do I not try to experience the pleasure of conjugal love with him? Why am I earning money by allowing many sinful men to enjoy my body? Actually, all these rich men were unable to fulfill my lusty desires. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The material desires of the conditioned souls are aroused due to lack of God consciousness, are due to lack of seeing the Supreme Lord as the only worshipable person. Aversion to the Lord's service places the conditioned souls in an artificial condition of distress, fear, lamentation, and illusion. Being under the control of the material nature, they cannot understand that the Supreme Lord is the true object of worship in all respects, and that He is always present by their side. The Supreme Lord is the actual enjoyer of all that is enjoyable, and He is situated in the hearts of all living entities as their well-wishing friends. Because it is the natural propensity for a conditioned soul to befriend another conditioned soul, they should together engage in the service of the non-dual Supreme Person. The Supreme Lord is eternal, and He is the master of those who award material wealth and other benedictions. He alone awards transcendental happiness, because He is the one Supreme Person who is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss, who maintains all other subordinate persons. One who gives him his relationship with the Supreme Lord and indulges in temporary material enjoyment is certainly fool number one. One who gives up his relationship with the Supreme Lord and indulges in temporary material enjoyment is certainly fool number one. Aho mayatma paritapito vrita sanketya vrityati vigarhya vartaya strainan narad yarta trisho nushochyat skritena vitam ratimatmanechati. Alas, I have unnecessarily troubled myself by adopting this most abominable profession of prostitution, desiring to earn money and enjoy sexual pleasure by selling my body to lusty men who themselves are to be pitied. Sārārtha-darśinī. Piṅgalā laments that she tried to attain a most insignificant pleasure by selling her body to insignificant, useless men. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The art of arousing the spirit of enjoyment is called sanketa vritti, and it involves employing sensual gestures and movements. Employing this art is one of the sinful ways of earning one's livelihood. Only the most condemned and greedy sense enjoyers are so attracted by the illusory beauty of a woman that they will spend their hard-earned money in exchange for a few moments of her association. If somehow or other a conditioned soul revives his inclination for Krishna service, he will come to understand that it was because of giving up the service of the Lord that he has been swallowed by the witches of material enjoyment and impersonal liberation. Only because of giving up the service of the Lord. Yarastibir nirmita vangsha. Yarastibir nirmita vangsha vangsya. Sturnam tvacharo manakai pinadham. Ksharannavadvaram agarametar vinmutrapurnam marupaitikanya. This material body is like a house wherein I, the eternal spirit soul, am residing. My spine, ribs, and the bones of my arms and legs are like the beams and pillars of the house. This body, which is full of stool and urine, is covered by skin, hair, and nails. Foul secretions emanate from the 9 doors of this body. Other than me, what woman would foolishly devote herself to this material body, thinking that she will find pleasure there? Sārārtha-darśinī. Piṅgalā thought, alas, this is most strange. I have accepted this disgusting body, which is full of obnoxious substances, as the object of my conjugal pleasure. This house, in the form of my body, has 9 gates. The spinal cord is the main bamboo pillar upon which the body is supported. The bones of the rib cage, as well as the hands and legs, are considered to be secondary beams giving support. Who is more unfortunate than me to consider such a body as a source of love and pleasure? Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The gross body of the conditioned soul is compared to a house. Just as a house consists of many wooden beams that provide support to the structure, the physical body is an assembly of bones, flesh, hair, nails, and other component parts. This body excretes abominable substances such as stool, urine, and perspiration. Therefore, it must be concluded that those who give up the service of Krishna just to accept the perishable and disgusting objects of this material world as desirable are certainly most unfortunate people. Videhanam pure yasmin Videhanam pure yasmin aham ekaiva murdadhi yanyam ichantya satyasmad atmadat kamamachyutat. I rejected Sri Hari, who awards self-realization in our original spiritual form, to enjoy sense gratification with many men. There is certainly no other woman in the city of Videha who is as foolish as myself. Sārārtha-darśinī. Piṅgalā thought, I am so unchaste that I desired the association of many useless men rather than Lord Achyuta, who gives himself to his dear devotees. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The Supreme Lord is a personification of all transcendental mellows. There is nothing temporary or abominable in him. If one desires to serve the Lord, one should give up the aspiration to be the enjoyer of the objects of the senses. To serve the temporary objects of this material world is certainly foolishness. Suhrit prishtatmano nata atmachayam sharirinam tam vrikriyat yatmanaivaham ramenena yataramam. Lord Hari is the well-wisher, the Lord, and the supersoul of all living entities. I will purchase him with the price of complete surrender and then enjoy with him, just like Lakshmi Devi. Sārārtha-darśinī. Piṅgalā thought, what should I do then? If you ask me this, my answer is that I will dedicate my body to my most beloved Lord and enjoy his company. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Self-realized souls who are devoted to Lord Hari's service are the actual friends and best masters of the embodied souls. If the conditioned souls engage in the service of the Lord, like Lakshmi, then their lives will become successful and they will attain eternal happiness. Piṅgalā realized that it is better to serve the Supreme Lord with one's body, mind, and speech under the subordination of Lakshmi Devi than to sell one's body to the temporary men of this world. This realization alone can free the conditioned soul from his propensity for material enjoyment. Kiyat priyam te vyabhajan kamaye kamada nara adyantavanta bharyaya deva va kalavidruta. Men give women some satisfaction of their senses, but they are all destined to die, even the demigods in the heavenly planets. These men are temporary creations of the illusory energy of the Lord, who will be forcibly dragged away by time. Considering this, how much pleasure can men actually give to their women? Sārārtha-darśinī. Piṅgalā thought, all men, and even demigods who endeavor to fulfill their lusty desires, are subject to birth and death. So how can they please their wives? I therefore conclude that no one in this world or in the next, other than the Supreme Lord, is worthy of my service. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Tempting objects of this world, proud men who are busily absorbed in their temporary material identifications, and demigods who cannot award any true benefit to their subordinates, are destroyed by time as a result of their karma. Just checking the comments again. Okay, it looks like... Oh, Dandavat Pranams, Sajan Maharaj. And Sudevi Didi, Dandavat Pranams. And Champak Didi, Hare Krishna. Manjari Didi, they said, it is interesting to note that she does not complain or blame the external environment or the exploitive persons. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, that's a very good point. She transcends her circumstances by the mercy of Sri Hari and see things as they are. Yeah, that's really the lesson in all this, isn't it? Is that we don't blame the external environment or any exploitive person, but we see how everything is the mercy of Hari, and then we can see things as they are. That's a really important point. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Nunam me Bhagavan prito Vishnu kenapi karmana nirvedo yam durashaya yan me jata sukavaha. Although I was determined to enjoy this material world because this most auspicious detachment Although I was determined to enjoy this material world because this most auspicious detachment has awakened in my heart, I think that Lord Sri Hari must be pleased with me. Without even knowing it, I must have performed some activity that satisfied him. Sārārtha-darśinī. In this way, Piṅgalā praises her good fortune. Some learned authorities have said that when Dattatreya happened to come to Piṅgalā's house, she said to him, "O foremost sage, what have I done to have the good fortune of seeing you? Today you have mercifully blessed my house. Please come in, have some food and water, and then rest a while." Indeed, Piṅgalā even cleansed her courtyard when Dattatreya arrived there out of his own sweet will. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. In this regard, one should contemplate the purport of the following verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam 11:23-28. Nunam me bhagavang stushta sarvadeva mayo hari yena nito dasham etan nirvedaschatmana plava. The Supreme Lord Hari, who is the Lord of Lords, must have been pleased with me, because by his mercy I have developed this mood of detachment, which is the means for my deliverance from the ocean of material existence. Maivam syur manda bhagyaya klesha nirveda hetava enanu bandam nirhritya purusha shamam richati. One who has developed detachment can give up the bondage of material existence, and one who undergoes great suffering gradually becomes, out of a sense of hopelessness, indifferent toward the material world. It was due to my great suffering that detachment awoke in my heart. If I were actually unfortunate, how could I have undergone such merciful suffering? I can only conclude that I am actually fortunate because I have received the mercy of the Lord. Somehow or other, he must be pleased with me. Wow, this is really nice. So all the difficulty that we go through and all the lessons that we learn from it is then we can realize how it is all directly the mercy of the Lord. Everything that we've gone through, and also the understanding that we get, is also the mercy of the Lord, the lessons that we learned. Somehow or other, he must be pleased with me. Sārārtha-darśinī. Piṅgalā thought, someone may ask me, why are you suffering despite having wealth? Is it because Lord Vishnu is not pleased with you? I would reply, please do not say that. If Lord Vishnu was not pleased with me, then I, who am an unfortunate prostitute, would not have developed a mood of indifference. Because of this indifference, I was able to give up all material aspirations and achieve satisfaction within my heart. Tenopakritam adaya shirasa gramyas. Sorry. What's the meat? Okay. Tenopakritam adaya shirasa gramya sangata tyaktva durashas sharanam vrajamitam adishvaram. Therefore, with all respect, I accept this favor of Sri Hari upon my head. I will now surrender myself unto the lotus feet of the Lord of the universe, Sri Hari, giving up all material desires. Sārārtha-darśinī. Piṅgalā thought, therefore, I gladly welcome this favor of Lord Vishnu, which has resulted in my mood of detachment. Although I was fully attached to worldly enjoyment, I now take shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord of the universe, Sri Hari. Santushta shadadatte tar yatala bena jivati viharam yunaivaham. That's difficult. Viharam yamunaivaham atmana ramanena vai. I have firm faith in the favor of Sri Hari, and I am satisfied to accept whatever he provides for my maintenance. I will only enjoy the association of Sri Hari, who is the actual source of all love and happiness. Sārārtha-darśinī. Piṅgalā thought, if someone were to ask, what will you do after surrendering to Sri Hari? The answer is that I will enjoy life with whatever I receive by his mercy. I will only enjoy the association of Sri Hari, who alone is capable of giving me real pleasure. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. One never commits any sin or offense if he utilizes all material objects in the service of Lord Krishna and accepts whatever comes of its own accord for his maintenance. Desire for material enjoyment arises as soon as there is an absence of the propensity to render loving service to the Supreme Lord. This is the root cause of all material miseries. While utilizing this natural propensity for serving the Supreme Lord, one is able to see everything within the material world as meant for the Lord's enjoyment, rather for his own enjoyment. Everyone sees everything as meant for the Lord's enjoyment, not for his own enjoyment. Thus, one sees the material world as an opportunity for engaging in the devotional service of the Lord. In Krishna consciousness, one's conditional life is dissolved, and one becomes qualified to establish true friendship with other devotees in the course of rendering loving service to the Supreme Lord. Sangsara kupe patitam vishayar mushikite kshanam grastam kala hinatmanam konyastratum adhishvara. The intelligence of the conditioned souls is taken away by his activities of sense gratification. Thus he falls into the dark well of material existence, where he is seized by the deadly serpent of time. Who else but the Supreme Personality of Godhead could save the poor living entity from such a hopeless condition? Sārārtha-darśinī. One may argue, why did Piṅgalā surrender to Vishnu instead of one of the demigods like Brahma? The answer is that no one but Lord Vishnu is capable of delivering the living entities who are drowning in the dark well of material existence, and are thus blinded by their spirit of material enjoyment and devoured by the poisonous snake of time. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The conditioned souls are bitten by the snake of time because they consider themselves to be the enjoyers of this temporary material world, which is experienced by the senses as sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. This spirit of enjoying separate from the Lord is the reason for their falling into the dark well of material existence. Still, the all-merciful Supreme Lord has made many arrangements to deliver the fallen conditioned souls from the dark well of material enjoyment by engaging them in his devotional service. I'm just seeing how many verses are in this chapter. 44. Okay, so we only have 2 more verses. Atmaiva hyatmano gopta nirvideta yada kilat apramatta idam pashyer grastam kala hina jagat. Only when one can see how this material world is being swallowed by the serpent of time does he become sober and thus come to his senses. Thus he refrains from all types of material enjoyment and becomes qualified to act for his own protection. Sārārtha-darśinī. One may ask, by what means can one be delivered from the dark well of material existence? The answer is that when one realizes that the entire material creation is being swallowed by the serpent of time, then he can become indifferent to all kinds of material enjoyment. Being endowed with this understanding, one becomes his own protector. Piṅgalā replies, recently, this was my personal experience, and thus I became freed from the clutches of material existence without separate endeavor. Now I will worship Lord Vishnu with love and devotion. This is the sum and substance of this verse. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. When a conditioned soul becomes self-realized and his natural propensity for the Lord's service is awakened, he receives the spiritual strength to protect himself from falling back down into material existence. As a result, he is no longer anxious to enjoy this material world, nor does he become intoxicated by thoughts of material enjoyment. It is only in forgetfulness of the Supreme Lord that a living entity indulges in sense gratification under the influence of the time factor. Such a materialistic life is a result of one's aversion to the Supreme Lord. One can be influenced by the material time factor, sense objects, and sense pleasure only as long as one is ignorant of his eternal constitutional position. The bodily conception of life separates the living entities from the cultivation of Krishna consciousness and makes them falsely think of themselves as the enjoyers of material nature. Shri Brahmana Uvacha Evam Vyavasita Matir Durasham Kantatarshajam Chitvo Pashamamastaya Shayam Upaviveshasa. The Avadhut Brahman said, thus her mind completely made up, Piṅgalā cut off all her sinful desires to enjoy sex pleasure with so-called lovers, and so she became situated on the platform of perfect peace. Thereafter, she sat down on her bed. Ashaihi paramam dukam, nairashyam paramam sukam, yata sanchidya kantasham, sukam sushvapa Piṅgalā. Material desires are undoubtedly the causes of terrible misery, and freedom from such desires is the cause of the greatest happiness. While thinking in this way, Piṅgalā renounced all desires to enjoy the affection of materialistic men, so that she was able to peacefully go to sleep. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Sense enjoyers are always disturbed in this world of so-called enjoyment. Hiding somewhere nearby the path of renunciation, the threefold material miseries inspire careless transcendentalists. Hiding somewhere nearby the path of renunciation, the threefold material miseries inspire careless transcendentalists to become enjoyers of perishable material objects whenever they get the slightest opportunity. The sinful desire for attaining fame, even while tied by the ropes of desires for material enjoyment, sometimes induces the conditioned souls to become servants of Ravan, Kamsa, Jarasandha, Aga, Baka, or Putana. If the conditioned souls turn off the temporary lamp of material desires and become attached to the lotus feet of the inhabitants of Raj, then all auspiciousness will be within their grasp. It's interesting, the temporary lamp of material desires. Just turn off that lamp. And they become attached to the lotus feet of the inhabitants of Raj, then all auspiciousness will be within their grasp. Pseudo-renunciation makes a living entity very proud. On the other hand, proper renunciation places living entities on the platform of pure goodness, or transcendence. Until the lamp of material desire is turned off, a devotee's desire for the service of the lotus feet of Sri Radha cannot materialize. Until the lamp of material desire is turned off, a devotee's desire for the service of the lotus feet of Sri Radha cannot materialize. In this regard, one should contemplate the meaning of this verse. Wow, this is a very high verse here. Ashabara amrita sindhu mayai katanchit kalo mayati gamita kila sampratanghi tvam chet kripa mai vidasya sinaiva keme pranar vrajena chavarorupakarinapi. O ravishingly beautiful Sri Radhe, I am passing my days and nights in torment with the singular hope that I may obtain the ocean of immortal nectar. So kindly shower your grace upon me. Deprived of your mercy, of what use are my life, residence in Vraj, or even servitorship to Krishna, the enemy of Bakasura? That's from Srila Raghunath Das Goswami's Vilap Kusmanjali 102. Sri Gaurasundar has taught us that the mood of separation is the best process for relishing the mellows of ecstatic love of Krishna. Thus ends the translation of the second chapter of the Uddhava-gīta entitled The Story of Piṅgalā, with the commentaries of Srila Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura and chapter summary and purports by Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura. Oh, I didn't realize the chapter summary was also by Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Prabhupāda. That's cool. Okay, so tomorrow we will read about how the Avadut Brahman describes the lessons to be learned from the 7 remaining spiritual masters, beginning with the Kurara bird. What are the 7 remaining gurus? Let's see. There's a child, the maiden, the unmarried girl, the serpent, the arrowsmith, the spider, the caterpillar, and that's it. 24th is a caterpillar. I like the arrowsmith one. Okay, so, yeah. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jai Shishi Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai. Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashata Rashata Shishmar Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Shila Gurudev Ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashata Rashata Shishmar Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashata Rashata Shishmar Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashata Rashata Shishmar Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashata Rashata Shishmar Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishta Maha Bhagavat Shila Gaur Kishoras Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishta Shila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Ṭhākura Ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Gauḍīya Guru Varga Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dashagunath, Shara Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shila Haridas Ṭhākura Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kunda Ki Jai. Shri Yamuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya Ki Jai. Shri Gopeshwara Mahadev Ki Jai. Shri Vyanjali Mahadwarashi Titi Ki Jai. Titi Palankari Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Grantaraj Shrimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Uddhava-gīta ki jai. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura Sārārtha-darśinī vritti ki jai. Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosvāmī Prabhupāda Gauḍīya Bhāṣya ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha. Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat pranams, everybody. Yes, Srila Sajan Maharaj says, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Srila Goswami Maharaj has said that the environment is always favorable. Yes, that's what we learned from this story of Piṅgalā, isn't it? Dandavat pranams, Maharaj. Thank you for sharing that. All right, so I'll see you all tomorrow. Oh, what I'm doing at the end of these readings again. Okay, so in 4 days from now is the Ras Yatra of Baladev. It is the appearance day of Shyamananda Prabhu and also the appearance day of Sri Vamsi Vadanananda Ṭhākura. So that's in 4 days from now. And in 9 days from now is the appearance day of Srila Bhakti Kumud Santa Goswami Maharaj and also the disappearance day of Sri Akinchana Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj. All right, see you all tomorrow. Jai Shri Radhe.